Hi there. So we're on Chapter 5 of Ingersoll Lockwood's 1900, or The Last President. Let's jump over there and we'll get right into it. Chapter 5. By proclamation bearing the date 5th day of March 1897, the President summoned both houses of Congress to convene in extraordinary session, quote, for the consideration of the general welfare of the United States, and to take such action as might seem necessary and expedient to them on certain measures which he should recommend to their consideration, measures of vital import to the welfare and happiness of the people, if not to the very existence of the Union and the continuance of their enjoyment of the liberties achieved by the fathers of the Republic. Well, while awaiting the day set for the coming together of the Congress, the great friend of the common people came suddenly face to face with the first serious business of his administration. 50,000 people tramped the streets of Washington without bread or shelter. Many had come in quest of office, lured by the solemn pronouncement of their candidate that there should be at once a clean sweep of these barnacles of the ship of state, and so complete had been their confidence in their glorious young captain that they had literally failed to provide themselves with either purse or scrip or shoes, and now stood hungry and footsore at his gate, begging for a crust of bread. But most of those making up this vast multitude were the unarmed warriors of peaceful armies, like the one once led by the redoubtable Coxey, decoyed from farm and hamlet and plantation by some nameless longing to go forth to stand in the presence of this new savior of society, whose advent to power was to bring them double pay for all their toil. Promises, promises. While on the march, all had gone well, for their brethren had opened their hearts and their houses, as these unarmed warriors had marched with flying banners and loud huzzas through the various towns in the route. But now the holiday was over, and they were far from their homes. They were in danger of perishing from hunger. What was to be done? "They are our people," said the President. "Their love of country has undone them. The nation must not let them suffer, for they are its hope and its shield in the hour of war, and its glory and its refuge in times of peace. They are the common people, for whose benefit this republic was established. The kings of the earth may desert them, I never shall." The Secretary of War was directed to establish camps in the parks and suburbs of the city, and to issue rations and blankets to these luckless wanderers until the government could provide for their transportation back to their homes. You're right, we're done with you. On March 15th, the President received the usual notification from both houses of Congress that they had organized and were ready for the consideration of such measures as he might choose to recommend for their action. The first act was to pass both houses and receive signature of the President, was an act repealing the Act of 1873 and opening the mints of the United States to the free coinage of silver at the ratio of 16-1 with gold, and establishing branch mints in the cities Denver, Omaha, Chicago, Kansas City, Spokane, Los Angeles, Charleston, and Mobile. The announcement that reparation had thus been made to the people for the crime of 1873 was conceived with loud cheering on the floors and in the galleries of both houses, and the great North heard these cheers and trembled. The next measure of great public import brought before the House was an act to provide additional revenue by levying a tax upon the incomes substantially on the lines laid down by the legislation of 1894. The Republican senators strove to make some show of resistance to this measure, but so solid were the administration ranks that they only succeeded in delaying it for a few weeks. This first skirmish with the enemy, however, brought the President and his followers to a realizing sense that not only must the Senate be shorn of its power to block the new movement of regeneration and reform, but by the adoption of rules cutting off prolonged debate, but that the new dispensation must at once proceed to increase its senatorial representation. Who could tell what moment some of the North silver states might not slip away from its allegiance to the friend of the common people? The introduction of a bill repealing the various civil service acts passed for the alleged purpose of regulating and improving the civil service of the United States, and of another repealing the various acts of establishing national banks and substituting United States notes for all national bank notes, based upon interest-bearing bonds, opened the eyes of the Republican opposition to the fact that the president and his party were possessed of the courage of their convictions and were determined, come good report or evil report, to wipe all conflicting legislation from the statute books. The battle in the Senate now took on a spirit of extreme acrimony. Scenes not witnessed since the days of slavery were of daily occurrence on the floors of both House and Senate. Threats of secession came openly from the North, only to be met with jeers and laughter of the silver and populous members. "We are in the saddle at last," exclaimed the Southern member, "and we intend to ride on to victory." The introduction of bills for the admission of New Mexico and Arizona, for the division of Texas into two states to be called East Texas and West Texas, although each of these measures was strictly within the letter of the Constitution, fell among the members of the Republican opposition like a torch in a house of tinder. There was fire at once, and the blaze of party spirit leaped to such dangerous heights that the whole nation looked on in consternation. Was the Union about to go up in a great conflagration and leave behind it but the ashes of the charred pedestals of its greatness? "We are the people," wrote the president in lines of dignity and calmness. "We are the people, and what we do under the holy sanction of law, and there is no one so powerful or so bold as to dare to say we do not do well in lifting off the nation's shoulders the grievous and unlawful burdens which preceding Congresses have placed upon them." And so the long session of the 55th Congress was entered upon, fated to last through summer heat and autumn chill until winter came again and the Constitution itself set limits to its lasting. And when that day came, and its speaker, amid wild tumult of cheers, arose to declare it ended not by their will but by the law of the land, he said, "The glorious revolution is in its brightest bud. Since the President called upon us to convene in last March, we have, with the strong blade of public indignation and with full sense of our responsibility, erased from the statute books the marks of our country's shame and our people's subjugation. Liberty cannot die. There remains much to be done in the way of building up. Let us take heart and push on. On Monday, the regular session of Congress will begin. We must greet our loved ones from the distance. We have no time to go home and embrace them." Chapter 6. When a Republican member of the House arose to move the usual adjournment for the holidays, there was a storm of hisses and cries of "No, no." Said the leader of the House amid deafening plaudits, "We are the servants of the people. Our work is not yet complete. There must be no play for us while the coal barons stand with their feet on the ashes of the poor man's hearthstones, and weeds and thorns cumber the fields of the farmer for lack of money to buy seed and implements. There must be no play for us while railway magnates press from the pockets of the laboring man 6 and 8% return on thrice-watered stocks, and rapacious landlords enriched by inheritance grind the faces of the poor. There must be no play for us while enemies of the humankind are by means of trust and combination and corners engaged in drawing their unholy millions from the very life-blood of the nation, paralyzing its best efforts and setting the blight of impertinence and indifference upon it, by making life but one long struggle for existence without a gleam of rest and comfort in old age. No, Mr. Speaker, we must not adjourn, but by our efforts in these halls of legislation let the nation know that we are at work for its emancipation, and by these means let the monopolists and money changers be brought to a realizing sense that the reign of the common people has really been entered upon. And then the bells will ring out a happier, gladder New Year than has ever dawned upon this republic." Lofty words. The opposition fairly quailed before the vigor and earnestness of the new dispensation. There were soon before the House, and pressed well on toward final passage, a number of important measures calculated to awaken an intense feeling of enthusiasm among the working classes. Among these was an act of establishing a loan commission for the loaning of certain moneys of the United States to farmers and planters without interest, an act for the establishment of a permanent Department of Public Works. Its head to be styled Secretary of Public Works, rank as a cabinet officer and supervise the expenditure of all public monies for the construction of public buildings and the improvement of rivers and harbors, and an act making it a felony and punishable with imprisonment for life for any citizen or combination of citizens to enter into any trust or agreement to stifle, suppress, or in any way interfere with full, open, and fair competition in trade and manufacture among the states, or to make any use of any interstate railroads, waterways, or canals for the transportation of any food products or goods, wares, or merchandise which may have been cornered, stored, or withheld, with the view to enhance the value thereof. And, most important of all, a preliminary act having for its object the appointment of commissioners for the purchase by the federal government of all interstate railway and telegraph lines, and in the meantime the strict regulation of all fares and charges by a government commission, from whose established schedules there shall be no appeal. Wow. So, this government is taking over all public utilities, railways, waterways. Crazy. Telephone lines. Regulating all the fares. Wow. On Washington's birthday, the president issued an address of congratulation to the people of the United States, from which the following is extracted. Man, this is getting scary in this story, huh? You know what happens when the government takes over everything? They do whatever they want. Here we go. The president's quote: "The malicious prognostications of our political opponents have proven themselves to be but empty sound and fury. Although not quite 1 year has elapsed since I, agreeable to your mandate, restored to you the money of the Constitution, yet from every section of our Union comes the glad tidings of renewed activity and prosperity. The working man no longer sits cold and hungry beside a cheerless hearthstone. The farmer has taken heart and resumed work. The wheels of the factory are in motion again. The shops and stores of the legitimate dealer and trader are in full bustle and action. There is content everywhere, save in the counting room of the money changer, for which thank God and the common people of this republic. The free coinage of that metal which the Creator in his wisdom stored with so lavish a hand in the subterranean vaults of our glorious mountain ranges has proven a rich and manifold blessing for our people. It is in the very sense of the word people's money, and already the envious world looks on in amazement that we have shown our ability to do without foreign cooperation. The Congress of our republic has been in almost continuous session since I took my oath of office, and the administration members deserve your deepest and most heartfelt gratitude. They are rearing for themselves a monument before lasting the chiseled bronze or polished monolith. They knew no rest, they asked for no respite from their labors, until, at my earnest request, they adjourned over to join their fellow citizens in the observance of this sacred anniversary. Fellow citizens, remember the bonds which a wicked and selfish class of usurers and speculators fastened upon you, and on this anniversary of the birth of the father of our country, let us renew our pledges and undo completely and absolutely their infamous work. And in public assembly and family circle, let us by new vows confirm our love of right and justice, so that the great gain may not slip away from us, but go on increasing so long as the statute books contain a single trace of the record of our enslavement. As for me, I have but one ambition, and that is to deserve so well of you that when you come to write my epitaph, you set beneath my name the single line, 'Here lies a friend of the common people.'" Gag. So, that was interesting. We can see that the government is already taking over everything. Kind of reminds you of Venezuela. other people have tried this. This can never end well, you know. If anybody should be allowed to be rich. If you want to be rich, you should be able to work and be rich if you want to be rich. But it's a story, so we'll see what happens next time. We'll continue with 1900, or The Last President. Stay tuned. Catch up on any you might have missed. They're all in the playlist. Storytime. So, till next time, see ya.